And joining me now is Odwa Magwentshu from Momentum Securities to share his analysis on the day's market's performance. Odwa, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. As mentioned, there's been renewed optimism in markets following the US-Japan deal. Now, all eyes are on relations, of course, between Brussels and Washington, with reports suggesting that a deal is imminent. While that's ongoing, investors are also tracking the ECB with expectations of a hold. What are your expectations on that front, considering that, the trade deal still hangs in the balance?
Oh, yes. If we're looking at the ECB, I think rightfully as anticipated, there should be a pause at this point to wait and see how the deal pans out next month. They have had, consecutive months where they've been cutting rates, 8 months, fastest amongst all developed nations. So that has been great to see as investors in that region. So now they are also pushing back quite aggressively against the United States in terms of their trade deals. So we could see, I'm anticipating they are pushing quite hard. If you look at the economy quite uniquely, you will find that, they have been struggling, especially with the car manufacturers. And so it will be interesting what would be the concession with regards to the deal. Would it be similar to the UK one, where they can only sell a finite amount of cars in the US, or similar to the Japanese one that they just announced, where it's the floodgates are open? So that's the question I think is quite pressing at the moment with the deal.
I'm sure everyone that's in that meeting negotiating with Trump or Trump's people are hoping for that 15% deal that Japan got, because after that deal was struck, your Toyotas, your Honda, all of those stocks were up about 8%, 10%. And that, of course, coming through because those tariffs were lowered. And speaking about tariffs and negotiations, as a South African, Odwa, I'm sitting here on the sideline screaming, Trump, squeezing in, because it doesn't seem like we're, at the top of the list when it comes to negotiations. Just how have you made, how we've been able to navigate the current environment and just negotiating with Trump?
I think South Africa is in a quagmire. We are top of the list in terms of the bad apples, according to the United States, but bottom in terms of deals coming through.
Yeah.
So in that sense, understandably so, the other countries are, for example, Japan is the fifth largest trading partner with the US. EU is quite high up there as well. So we are not as much of in front of their eyes in terms of that. But I do think that on our side, we do have potential, especially on the agricultural side of things. If we can alleviate that side and get a better deal on that front, I think it would be great. Very worryingly, South Africa also has a lot of these EU manufacturers,
Yes.
VWs, Mercedes in South Africa. And so we're also holding on to see how the EU deal goes about. And if we will benefit from it. If they benefit from, for example, maybe we can go through the EU in selling our Mercedes-Benz and VWs. But there's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
And right now, as I said, because we are not necessarily his favorite people right now, we could struggle in this moment.
And that's such an interesting take. I didn't think of how we could possibly benefit from the EU deal, because a lot of the EU automakers have manufacturing hubs here at home. Let's take a look at some company news out. Earnings season really heating up, and this week we had all our eyes on the Mag 7 numbers. Alphabet getting things started, Alphabet and Tesla. But let's start off with Alphabet beating market expectations with ad revenue and the cloud unit really boosting its second quarter performance. It also raised its capex for the year. Is this anything to worry about, Odwa, or has the concerns about increased spending fizzled out?
I think it is. What's interesting is, what are they raising the money for? I think that's going to be the worrying thing. Potential is with regards to with AI, as everyone is investing in it. However, the issue is then, will that put more pressure to the pending what's this thing, monopoly issue that they're currently having. So there is
Yes.
that situation
Yeah.
where do you want to invest more to build more, bring more eyes to the company? But I do think that, I mean, the business is growing quite aggressively and quite strongly and nicely in a way. They did, on the AI front, they did also mention that they are clamping down on users using AI to generate content, and they're paying those users, so they're not paying those users anymore. So
That was
they
for
also
YouTube,
get.
right?
Yes,
Ah.
yes, that's on YouTube. So there is that strategy that I think they're moving towards, and I think if they play their cards right and legalities are sorted, we could see a very big AI investment coming from him. And I think also, if you look at the cloud business, they might be building more infrastructure. Those are the different avenues that they could go to. With
Okay.
the money they have and the cash piles they're having, they can afford it at this point.
All right, let's move over to Tesla, posting another downbeat set of earnings and warning of even further losses moving forward after President Trump, of course, cancelled EV incentives. These kind of numbers come as no surprise, right?
No, 100%. You're not the first person to ask me about Tesla. Last week, it came up, and I was saying they are definitely in a troubled period right now, not only from the CEO's antics,
Yep.
however, also lack of innovation, in my personal opinion, in these later years. They did, had the leading advantage when they started out. However, the likes of the BYDs have come and operated, and caught up, to say the least. And I think also when it comes to the investor sentiment, it's also the broken promises from Tesla, which is also making them lose that ground with investors. We don't have affordable
Yep.
passenger cars. We still don't have driverless vehicles or robo taxis, and all these promises are still being put out as the guidance for what to expect next. But if you take, for example, the robo taxis, they were ahead with Wame, against Wame, who's partnered with Uber right now, and they took 2 years after announcing to get to this point. Now, Tesla's just announcing, and they're losing the support from the U.S. government. The time to come to play, it may seem even further than they anticipate.
A lot of dynamics at play there, as you mentioned, the CEO's antics as well as just downbeat sales, tough competition, really a tough time for Elon Musk and his company. All right, let's hit pause on the conversation. Before we move on to your stock pick, let's take a moment to touch on what your industry peers find interesting.
Despite us bashing the domestic economy, there's management teams that manage to navigate it well. Yeah. And I would argue the market's underappreciating this business. Trades on 4 times earnings. It's a small industrial company, and it specializes in auto consumables, agri and auto parts, capital equipment, that type of thing. But it's got a really impressive portfolio, about 400 brands there. And what's nice is they supply and service these industries, all the spare parts and that. So nicely vertically integrated, and they've done some really good work recently, as we were chatting about, and cleaning up their capital structure, getting rid of the prefs. So I think the future looks quite bright for them. Well-run little business, and they're expanding into sectors and in geographies where they have the expertise, and I think you're going to get some genuine growth out of them.
I just like markets. And I think that wherever you are, if you're in any of the indices, you're going to do well, whether S&P, whether you're on the local market as well. I think we're in for a very strong second half. So, to try and find one specific share that's going to outperform all of that, no, just go with them. Go with the equities. And you know what else is there? Simon, I have to mention this as well.
Yeah.
The property market is starting to pick up. Every day I watch and there's a kick up, and that, it's early stage, but smart money is going into property. And it's not only local, it's Hammerson's and the Shaftesbury, and all of those are starting to show signs of kind of, picking up. Got to do a lot more work on it, but, things seem to be happening there.
All right, David, really betting on that risk on sentiment, and perhaps we can focus on the local market when it comes to that, with the JSE hitting, that historic level of 100,000 marks just yesterday, and then we can get your take on Invicta.
I think that the markets are, well, I mean, if you look at the South African markets, have been undervalued for quite some time. And as you say, now starting to push ahead. And luckily for us, even on our markets, well diversified, we have had, for example, the property market, the REITs haven't been performing or shooting the lights out. But if you look at the results, they are starting to get back to nice occupancy levels. They are expanding quite a great, in nice divisions and paying a nice dividends. That's the REITs. In banking sector, is still holding off a bit, but obviously the gold and platinum miners have helped us,
Yeah.
and the improvement in China's economy, GDP going up, imports and etc., that also led to the likes of Naspers growing. So we do have a lot of opportunities in the local markets, and even after the tariff announcement comes about, I do think may not be the overall market, but there are still pockets of opportunities.
Okay. And what about Invicta?
Invicta, I do believe that, I mean, vertically integrated is a very good positive for them. They have managed, if you look at the last results, they've managed to increase income. They've dropped a bit of their debt. So on a technical or fundamental basis, they are looking well positioned. It's just a matter of will everything go accordingly.
All right, let's get into your stock pick then. Where are you seeing opportunity at the moment?
On my side, I'm looking a bit on the telco side, mainly on MTN. MTN has, been coming back after a troublesome time in Ghana and Nigeria with a weaker currency on that front. Now we're seeing a bit of a turnaround on that front, and then also the business is growing quite nicely in the mobile money, and also if you look at the sales or the retail market as well. Overall, I think that the business is undervalued and being punished and starting to make a comeback.
All right, let's leave it there. Odwa, thanks so much for your time and taking us through trade at midday. That was Odwa Magwentshu from Momentum Securities.